4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point you realize you married into crazy. And that's what our show is all about. If your marriage or relationship is compassionate, real, accountable, zealous and yielding, or just plain crazy, Snooks and Lovey offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as they unpack this thing called marriage. Sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey, and I'm going solo. This is going to be another episode of the King's Corner. And so today what I wanted to do was really dive into a couple of things. But before I do that, the number one thing I need you to do right now is wherever you're listening to us, wherever you're watching us, go ahead and hit subscribe, like us, and share. So it helps tremendously by sharing, simply because you're going to raise awareness for other individuals that should be a part of this conversation. And what kind of conversation is that? For those of you that are new to the podcast, the Married into Crazy podcast is about being married, about all things marriage. But being crazy is something that we really pride ourselves in. And when we say crazy, it's not an insult, it's an invitation. So we're a couple that's been married for going on 30 years now. It's a long time, and we've been through some things. And there's a lot of couples out there that have been through a lot of different things in their lives, but our life was truly crazy. When we first got introduced to each other, actually tricked into meeting each other, people, they thought that we were going to be great together, and they gave her my phone number, they gave me her phone number, and we threw it away multiple times. So they ended up tricking us into meeting each other. But it was love at first sight for me, but she was one of those people that took a little bit longer. It took her 8 days. But in this whirlwind of a very interesting beginning, she had an estranged ex-boyfriend that would pop up every now and then, and he attacked her after we got engaged, actually within a week of us getting engaged. And from there, I protected her. She ended up falling, hitting her head on the ground. I ended up getting stabbed through my heart, ended up having 2 open heart surgeries. We survived that. Right? He went to jail. We survived that. We said our I do's, and you would think that at that point, everything got better. Well, 4 years into our marriage, my wife asked for a divorce because I wasn't really showing up as the man that I said that I was or that she deserved. And we both had to take a long, hard look at ourselves, at each other and at ourselves, and had to make a decision about who we wanted to be. And so we got through that, and we decided to become that couple that we needed back then, which is why we grew and became Married into Crazy. And when I said earlier that crazy is not an insult, it's an invitation, that's the truth. And crazy is an acronym. The invitation is to become more compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding. And what I wanted to get into is, what does it mean to be a compassionate husband, right? A compassionate man that aspires to be a husband. So the definition of compassion is the feeling or showing of deep sympathy, empathy, and concern for the suffering or misfortune of others, combined with a genuine desire to alleviate that pain. It implies a strong emotional awareness of another's distress, followed by a proactive desire to help. So what does that mean? You're a husband, you're married, you said I do. You went before God and you said, I take you, whomever, to be my lawfully wedded wife. In doing that, we need to actually, if we don't already have it, we need to adopt, learn, grow to have compassion for that individual that we said I do to. We need to be able to stand up for that person when they are fallen down. We have to be able to reach down, lift them up, but also allow them the opportunity to do the same for us. Just because we're the man in the relationship doesn't mean that we're always right. And it doesn't always mean that we're going to understand exactly what the other person is going through. We're not going to have that perspective. Don't forget that when each of us were, let's say prior to us coming into this relationship, I know for us, I had 27, we each had 27 years written in our respective books. We had 27 chapters that had already been written. She was who she was, I was who I was. So, and we both had different upbringings. So we know that I'm not always going to see things through her lens and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't attempt to have at least some kind of understanding of where that other person's coming from. And in order to be a compassionate husband, that means that I have to be able to pause in the middle of my bravado, in the middle of my ego, in the middle of all the things that I have going on. If she's truly distressed, I have to be able to take a step back and be like, wow, what is she really going through right now? How am I contributing to whatever this may be? It requires a high level of emotional intelligence for us to be able to move forward as a husband and stand in the gap for our wife. Sometimes, we talk about we protect our kids from themselves. We need to protect our marriage from ourselves at times as well. Meaning, if I bring my ego into it, which, trust me, I have many, 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 many times over the years, but it's always done damage. It's always put us in a position to where we had to dig ourselves out of something. I had to dig myself out of something, and it stalled, right? It paused our relationship. So instead of moving forward, we were too busy trying to catch up to where we were before, whatever that situation was. But here's an opportunity as a man, as a husband, as the king, right? As the leader of your home, as the first minister of your home, to be able to take a step back, see what your spouse is going through, and ask questions. Just simply asking, okay, I don't completely understand what you're going through or how you're feeling, but tell me how I contributed to this if I have. But also, what can I do to make it better? And you have to know that I'm not going to be able to make it better. Sometimes it's just that they need us to listen. And that listening is a form of compassion in itself. They don't always want us to fix what's broken or what's ailing or what's hurting. Sometimes they just need to be heard. And likewise, sometimes I just need to be heard as well. But we won't know that unless we ask the questions. And simply inquiring is showing a level of compassion that I didn't have early on in my relationship. Just showing up and asking, hey, what's going on? And be willing to sit down and listen. Not ask because, I know I'm supposed to ask this. I heard this on a podcast. No, I genuinely care, and I want to make sure that you're taken care of and that you're okay. And so you ask, hey, what's going on? Is there anything that I can do? And when they say no, we got to take it at face value. And let me just say this, Queens, if you're out there listening, if you say no, nothing's wrong with an attitude, we know something's wrong. But if you truly say, I don't need you to do anything right now, I just need you to listen, then be about that. Then if we listen, don't hold it against us that we didn't attempt to fix it either. And I'm saying, gentlemen, just because they tell us what's going on doesn't mean like, okay, now I've got my walking orders. This is what I got to fix. I got to call so-and-so. I got to do this. I got to do that. No, sometimes it's just listening and then wrapping your arms around her and saying, you know what, I'm here for you. In whatever capacity you need me to be here, I'm here. And if you can do that and extend that level of compassion, you're well on your way to having a crazy marriage. There's no specific steps that I can give you because every relationship is different. The DNA in your relationship is very different from the DNA in my relationship. It's so unique, it's almost as if it has its own fingerprint. And your relationship isn't meant to be like mine or anybody else's, but you can take little nuggets from couples like myself or some of the other interviews that we've done in the past, or somebody that you deem as having a really cool relationship, a really healthy relationship in your community. Doesn't mean you have to be just like them, but you can learn from each other. And taking that and maybe applying one or two things that's going to help you to be more compassionate in your relationship. So this was this week's King's Corner, and then I think what I'm going to do is make sure that I walk through every single letter and talk about what it means from my perspective to be a king in your home and to be more compassionate, more real, more accountable, more zealous, and more yielding. So until the next time, keep being the king that you are, but aspire to be better. See you soon. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. Please like, subscribe to, and review the show wherever you access it, and tell a friend about us. Visit marriedintocrazy.com and see how Snooks and Lovey can bless your marriage directly.